Climate Factors Analysis Video of Sydney by Ariana Fernandez and Valeria Mumani.
Sydney climate is around 340 days of sun. Summers are warm to hot and winters are mild.
In summer, that is, from December to February, the temperature is around 26 degrees, and in winter, the average temperature, that is from June to August, is around 16 degrees. Latitude is affected by climate, because the higher latitude you go, the colder the climate is, and the lower latitude you go, or the closer to the equator you get, the warmer the climate gets. And since Sydney is near the equator, its climate will be from warm to hot, and it will be hard to get cold, so its winter is going to be mild.
Altitude is affected by climate because the higher you get, the more of temperature drops. And once there is many high places, like mountains, they will often get snow. This is why Sydney is usually warm, because they don't have high elevations.
Precipitation affects climate in several ways. It helps regulate air and land temperatures and contributes to the formation of wind. On the graph of the left, we can see how the temperature at first is high and then it starts to go down and then goes back when it was before. On the graph of the right, we can see how precipitation almost stays the same except for the month of August.
The ocean influences climate over long and short time scales. On the longest time scale of geological time, the shape and location of the continents help determine the ocean circulation. Since now the continental plates drift at about 5 centimeters per year, the mountain ranges rise, and it usually takes millions of years for new land formations to change the oceans. One example of climate affecting an ocean current is the East Australian Current, that is a southwestern boundary current that is formed from the South Current, crossing the Coral Sea and reaching the eastern coast of Australia.
Landforms affect climate by altering the wind and rate of evaporation, which can cause changes in temperature, humidity, and precipitation. Sydney Earth's temperature has risen faster than the rest of Australia during the last century, largely because of urbanization. The metropolitan area now consists about 3.8 million people. Climate graphs. Wind speed and altitude in 10 different cities. On this graph, we can see that the city with the highest wind speed is Quito, and the city with the lowest wind speed is Tunja. We can also see that the city with the lowest altitude is Sydney, and the city with the highest altitude is La Paz. Altitude is affected by climate because the higher you get, the more of temperature drops. This is why Sydney is usually warm, because they don't have high elevations.
In this graph of temperature and latitude, we can see that the first city that starts is Quito in Ecuador, and the last one is Pax in USA. We can see that Quito starts first because it starts with a high temperature, and we can see that we end in Paxton because it has like high temperature and low latitude, like Quito. In this graph, the most highest temperature, or the most highest city in temperature and latitude, is Sydney. And we can see that throughout the graph, some cities have low temperature and some cities have high temperature, and some cities have low latitude and some cities have higher latitude.